understanding why the emotionally stunted person is a religious person is pretty straightforward. Effective realism means reality is what it feels like, not what it is. They also haven't developed a proper moral code. This is why whenever you talk to Christians or Catholics, they're like, you need God to know what's right and wrong. They don't have a superego because of their religion. Now, that's because they're infantilized. Emotionally stunted means you think like a 2-year-old. This is a fact. It's not up for debate. The other side of this is, with the effective realism comes the inability, because to them reality is subjective, comes the inability to know what is reality and what's not reality. When I was president, I did LSD acid trips or whatever, and one of them you get to go to heaven. And I got to meet Jesus. Now, everybody's heaven is different. That's because everybody trips acid differently. In this heaven, it was just a white space with a white floor and a white expanse, kind of like the hyperbolic time chamber in DBZ. And I met Jesus, and Jesus was like, hey, Bob, blah, 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 you know, all the worship of gods and churches. And I was like, never agreed with any of it. And he was like, I know. That's why you're my favorite. You don't waste my time with your problems. And I was, yep. And he's like, that's why I chose you to take down the church. Actual conversation with Jesus or acid trip. I'll let you guys debate about that. It's an acid trip. That was followed by, you get to see all of eternity in this one acid trip where everything goes by really quick. And you get that feeling of the fleeting of life, but I've always had that feeling of the fleeting of life, so I didn't need to do an acid trip to have that happen. Meeting the anal eaten mummies, another acid trip. So, when we were out there doing these acid trips, the wives kept telling me they're real, it's reality, because it's what your brain perceives is reality. No, it's not what your brain perceives is reality. None of that shit is real. This is real. If you do not have the ability to understand you are in reality, there's something wrong with you. But I will make the argument that because they are lead brain, and lead brain knocks you out of your peripheral nervous system, meaning you can't feel things correctly through your nervous system, that you might not be connected with reality to begin with. The wives spoke about the importance of entitlement, the importance of having an infantilized imbecile that can't process its emotions. We had this back and forth where the wives were trying to explain to me that when I felt something, I needed to describe the feeling, and then they would interpret it, and I was just, this is stupid. I know what I feel and how I feel or why I feel. I'm aware there are core emotions and secondary emotions. I know that the secondary emotion is anger, and the core emotion is sadness, fear, or hatred. Not hatred, but hey, hatred's a secondary emotion. These things aren't that complicated, but to an emotionally stunted person that can't process their emotions, they're impossible. Okay? They're impossible. When I was talking to one of the church leaders out there, after the perjury was signed and all that shit, and these guys were doing their victory lap, I win, I can get back to raping babies, and this church is pro-pedophilia, I'm just going to say that, so if you're a part of this church, you are pro-pedophilia. This weird shit came about where they were like, everybody's mean to us and hates us because they're actually jealous. Yes, somebody that is emotionally stunted and can't process emotions literally had the balls to explain to me the problem is everybody hates them because they're jealous. And I was like, or do they hate you because you're a piece of shit? There's the episode of Transformers with Orion Pax before he's Optimus Prime. He comes outside and he sees Megatron flying around and he was like, man, those new models sure are cool. Oh man, I wish I could fly. And then Megatron and the Decepticons start stealing and shooting and basically just murdering Autobots. And they're like, we're the superior race. We're the better ones. So that's why we get everything and we can kill everyone. And nobody hates us. They're just jealous. And then Ryan Pax gets shot and they put him back together and they put him back together as Optimus Prime. And then when Optimus Prime confronts Megatron, Megatron's like, everybody's so jealous of me. They're being mean. That's what's wrong. Is there, and also, you really basically, like, this isn't a nutshell, this isn't his exact dialogue, but he's like, are you really that dumb that you actually believe we're just jealous of you? And then Prime's like, because he's a man, he's like, yeah, I was jealous that you could fly, but I'm not going to act out and try to murder you. I'm trying to kick your ass because you're fucking everybody up and murdering people. We hate you because of how you act, dude. Megatron's like, nope, they're jealous. They're jealous. I know that because I project onto everybody. Because the truth is, when people are insecure, they're jealous of everybody in existence, and they can't admit it. Okay, these guys are extremely insecure. They say security comes from when you have strong parents protecting you as a kid, and when a parent fails that job, like they decide to rape you, you become insecure. You cannot be a malignant narcissist and not admit that and deny that you are insecure. You're insecure. Okay? That is a fact. That is not up for debate. This is how psychology works. Okay? You run into the same shit with these assholes and guns, and they're like, I need it for safety. Why do you need it for safety? Is it because you feel insecure? No, I just need it for safety. And insecurity means you don't feel safe. So you feel safe when there's a gun around. Look, even prison guards have figured out it's a bad idea to have firearms in prison, so you can take that for what you will. I wonder if they would feel safer with a gun on them. Probably not. These people, and this is the thing about narcissistic projection, I wanted to talk about this shit. I realize now, like, I need to do some mental work, but when I was at Papa John's, Blondie and the other losers kept coming in with this phone and having me talk to this guy. And the guy kept asking me, like, what would I do to a pedophile? And I was like, I'd beat, rape, cut his arms off, gouge his eyes out, and fucking chop his dick off. And then Blondie was like, and this guy, he loves doing drugs. He loves hurting women. He loves doing it. And I was just like, he loves doing all these things. And he's like, yeah. And then mid-sentence, Blondie and one of the other guys, I'm talking to him, they're like, Bobby, do you like doing drugs? And I was like, no, I don't do fucking drugs. I was like, are you fucking stupid? And then they froze, and they're like, the guy doesn't like doing drugs. I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean he doesn't like doing drugs? I was like, so this guy's a pedophile, and Blondie was like, he's a pedophile, and he likes doing drugs. He doesn't like doing drugs. I was like, did somebody make him do drugs? I was like, why was he on drugs? And Blondie was like, oh! Narrative spinning. My theory is they got me to tell this guy that everything they're gonna do to me in prison, by brain fart. Yes, they got me to tell this guy everything he's gonna do to me in prison for being a drug addicted pedophile, when I'm not. And Blondie thought that was a great narrative right up until I told them I don't do drugs. And then he came back and he was like, oh no. I was like, what? And he was like, what? You do drugs. I was like, I don't do drugs. He's like, you do drugs. I was like, I don't do drugs. And he said, how do you go through life without doing LSD? Because he's an addict. Okay? The CIA made it so that LSD is not classified as an addictive drug, so it's not a scheduled high drug on the thing, so that they can do LSD. Yes, the CIA does LSD, and they don't want to be arrested for it. Okay, they don't believe they deserve that because they're addicted to it. They're dependent. They're codependent on the LSD. How am I supposed to feel good? I got tetralead in my brain, and it causes me constant misery, and my brain's constantly being hurt, and then the only way to get out of it is by doing LSD. I have a stupid religion that makes me subpar at best. Like, yeah. So, I think I'm aware of what's going to happen if I turn myself in. And I think, one, I just need to radical acceptance. I'm going to be killed. It doesn't matter what I do. And the other side of this shit is, one, the immaturity is palpable, because they had me retarded on heavy metals, and then they had me literally telling them what I would do to a pedophile, and these guys, that's not happening to us, even though they are the pedophiles. So, like, I don't fucking Like, whatever. Yeah, so, anyways. They don't have the ability to tell reality, and that's where narrative spinning comes from. It comes from lying, and that is what they do. The whole shit that they never tell lies, or my word is my bond, all that shit. It is all lies, okay? Because narrative spinning comes from lying, and that's where Blondie came up with the narrative that I was a drug addict that raped kids. And then fucking all of a sudden found out I don't do drugs. And then fucking found out the wives had tricked me and were fucking keeping me sedated on drugs because they were terrified I would sign the perjury. And that is what really happened. And Blondie was like, oh no, I fucked up because he was lying. He was narrative spinning. He was making it up because he doesn't exist in this reality. He exists in made up Blondie reality where he's the hero and everybody else is evil. Bob is evil. He was just trying to help a bunch of people that are being human trafficked and stop a bunch of women from getting their brains eaten. But Bob is evil. And you know, in his brain, fucking if the church does fall or whatever the fuck, they're gonna point him the great savior, but then there's gonna be weird conversations with him where what he says doesn't make any fucking sense, and he's gonna get mad and turn self-righteous and say it's everybody else's fault because he's the victim. He's gonna be like Donald Trump shit where people like making fun of Donald because he's a fucking loser, and the reason he's been elected to office is because he's a fucking imbecile. Like, there's a thing. People don't like intelligent people. Intelligent people make stupid people nervous. That is why they made me stupid, because I terrified them with how smart I am. And I'd even argue they're probably at war with these videos, because even though I'm right, I have to be wrong, because it's about how they feel. And their feelings come first in everything. Their feelings are the most important on the planet, and nobody else's feelings mean shit. Okay? This is why they force women to marry them, and they're like, everything's going to be great as long as you pop your LSD, because I'm a horrible person and I can't connect with you on a sympathetic or emotional level, and I'm going to force you to do what I want you to do, and there's no talks about it, and I'm the good guy, I'm just doing all the bad things. Okay? It's a good thing Stockholm Syndrome exists, or else the women in these guys' fucking sex harems would probably stab them to death. Like, yeah. A history of distorting reality or making up new narratives to deal with things. I remember Blondie kept trying to demonize me into being this evil person, but then like the guys I worked with kept defending me, saying he's not an evil person, he's actually a really good dude, and Blondie couldn't handle that, so he started threatening people just because he wanted to get his way. This is a child with a weapon, okay? It is the most... dude, the immaturity is just so crazy with these people, and then they have the balls to tell you they're a man. And then you're just constantly dealing with their immaturity on a level beyond comprehension. Blondie's inability to just accept that he was wrong, to accept that, dude, the shit where he turned himself in and then unturned himself in and then was like, now I can't ever turn myself in. It was all a ploy. It was him virtue signaling, because he knew if he could virtue signal, people would like him. I'm willing to bet he probably spends a lot of time trying to get my sex harem to like him, because he can't handle the fact that they like me. And he's rich, everything's handed to him, he's entitled to everything, he behaves like a complete piece of shit, but then there's this good guy that's poor as fuck, he doesn't have anything, and people like him. And that makes him fucking crazy, because he's supposed to be liked because he has all the stuff and things that was handed to him. And he's glorious because everything's handed to him, and everything's easy because everything's handed to him. And it's just like, fuck you, dude. Fuck you, dude. Eat shit. Like, and I will say this for the wives, I guess for them, it's a good thing Stockholm Syndrome does exist, because they're just going to be raped and tortured by Blondie the rest of their lives, and he's going to be like, this is good, I know what's good, because I'm a lunatic and I don't have a developed brain, my brain is the size of a pea, I hate intelligence, I hate intelligence, I hate it, and it's just like, great, he likes being a dumbass and whatever. It's regretful that these women ended up in this situation, and arguably it is kind of my fault, but then again, even when I selected them, I was kept high on drugs, okay? I wouldn't have made these decisions if I wasn't high on drugs, okay? I don't do drugs. These people do all the drugs, okay? And when I say all the drugs, I mean all the fucking drugs. They're all a part of their dumbass rituals. They're all a part of their dumbass LSD trips. They're all a part... Dude, this is the problem. Emotionally stunted people can't connect with reality in a proper way. Okay? Reality is painful. Reality is torture. They're like Meeseeks from Rick and Morty. And that's why everything ends with you get to be high on drugs the rest of your life. After you do all the atrocities and do all the horrors, you get high on drugs and you can run from reality forever because the church will enable you to. It's called a flop house. You can go do drugs at a flop house and you don't have to do all the horrible shit you do in the church. Okay? It's not special. It's not unique. The tetralead they gave you made you an addict. You are an addict. You are nothing more than an addict. You're not driven. You're an addict. Anything else? No, that's it. Just... These people hate reality. They hate America. They hate everything in existence because it's not them. And when they deal with other people, they don't actually understand them. They project themselves onto them. They're not great at psychology. They don't actually understand people. It's all an illusion.